Hi again then guys, and so the time has arrived, of course, with the new 1.28 patch dropping today to review the whole pack in its entirety. And despite the fact that we have, of course, a returning high roller in this pack, the Alfa Romeo TZ2, which incidentally did turn out to have my personal predicted price, that it would retain the same price as Gran Turismo 6 of 10 million credits, which is still a lot, of course, and it could have easily gone up like the Daytona did. But I'm glad that it didn't, because we'll get to it in a second, and of course even more so in its own review. But of the high rollers, it doesn't really deserve a price hike. It's a cool car, but it's nowhere near as fast as any of those others. But as I said, we'll get to that in due time. Now, a couple of things about the update are things which of course you don't necessarily expect or don't think of initially, some of the smaller features perhaps. And the one which actually surprised me the most, which most people probably won't care about, but it's interesting to note, is that you can now actually buy the 125cc go-kart in the game. You can buy it for 10 grand from the Gran Turismo dealership under the Japan section, which I find pretty interesting. It's not exactly needed because it's easy to unlock it anyway. But I guess for people who can't even watch that video that you unlock the car after, then you have the option of buying it instead. It's super cheap. Of course, it was featured in my countdowns for the lightest vehicles in the game, so that was an interesting one to me. But of course, the meat of the review is the new stuff. Now, the best points and the worst points, what are they? Well, I'm glad to say there are no worst points really about this pack. Fuji is cool, the times of day can be changed, which is the first time in the franchise that I can remember that we can actually do that. There are two different layouts, one which is more complex, one which is just a simple straight through track, which you'll see in this video. As far as my favourite things from this pack and the things that surprise me, both of the Porsches are fantastic. You can detune the older model down to N300, and I do plan to make a money-earning tune for that. I think it has a good chance of being a great one, at least on par with the GT40 and the KTM Crossbow. It's also only 140 grand, so it's a whole lot cheaper than any of the other 911s in the game, which is pretty nice as well. And it's a very soft car in every way. The visuals, the interior design, the handling, it's much softer and more friendly than the newer 911s. They're already really good, but it has a nice charm to it, I think. I was very pleasantly surprised because I've never been a fan of the closest thing to it in the franchise, the Roof RGT. It was a cool enough car, but I never liked it that much. This Porsche, I really like it. It's very cool choice. The newer one, I wasn't bothered by at all, to be honest. The 2008, I believe it is, facelift, because I thought, as I said in my review, or my predictions video, why do we even have it? We have that newer version anyway, it seems so close to it, but it's better, I would say, across the board, because you can detune it to N400 very easily, so it's probably just as good at earning money. Doubtless it's going to be just as OP, but it's cheaper. It's like 160 grand instead of about $250,000, I think it is, for the existing 911. And after actually driving it, some of which you can see in this video, and again we'll go more into this in its individual review, it's great. The handling is a lot of fun, it sounds good. I think I actually like it more than the existing one that we already had in the game, which really surprised me because I'm not a huge fan of Porsche, generally speaking, but both of these, I think, are definitely going to live up to your expectations, if not exceed them. And another vehicle which really surprised me, perhaps even the most of the whole pack, because I mentioned in my predictions that it was never a car that I use that much. It's always overshadowed by the BMW Z4 GT3, and that is the BMW M3 GT2, or in the game classified as the M3 GT. It is in Group 3, it is 450 grand, all of which we expected. Of course, it retains the same specs to begin with, 500 horsepower, just under 1250 kilos, but it really surprised me in terms of how good it feels. The handling is outstandingly good on this car. I personally love the Ford GT in Group 3 from the last update. This one's even better in terms of handling. It feels kind of like a touring car, a DTM level machine, but of course it's not. It's a GT style car, and the sound, it's great as well, ultra loud, and when you back off the throttle it's got that lovely gnarly pop sound to it, which you want the cars to sound like, especially a race car. So if you're looking forward to that one, you're not going to be disappointed for sure. It's a really nice interpretation of that Beamer in the game. And as far as the rest of the pack, I think there isn't really anything that let me down. There are some which I don't care for as much. I'm not a huge fan of the 300ZX, but as you can see in this video, it certainly isn't slow, and while I was driving it, it was so quick, with around 900 horsepower, that it suddenly made me think it might actually be pretty good for earning money as well, so I'll have to give that one a try. It might turn out to be too tail-happy for Blue Moon Bay, but we'll see how it goes. Either way, it's a great JDM car, fantastic in a straight line, really good drifter as well. As far as the NSX, which a lot of us were hoping would be a good money earner, and, you know, it's an icon either way, I have mixed feelings on that one. It's certainly not bad. It feels a little bit nerfed compared to previous games, because in previous Gran Turismos, any NSXR, be it the newer one or this one, they're always far too good. Technically, they're almost untouchable as far as road cars for their power goes, like sub 500 horsepower. It feels good, and it certainly feels realistic. It doesn't feel as crazy OP though, which many people will of course be happy about. You can detune it to N200, but due to the fact that it's only 97,000 credits to buy, unfortunately I don't think you can use it in Blue Moon Bay. I didn't double check that, but I'm pretty sure you can't. It's close to 100 grand, but of course it's not quite 100 grand. As far as the Alfa, of course many of you guys won't necessarily have the cash to go out and buy it straight away. Incidentally, actually, the entire pack will cost you 12.5 million credits to buy. So that's actually pretty good compared to the last one. Two of the cars in the previous pack were 20 million apiece. So this is a lot less than that. And if you discount the Alfa Romeo, 2.5 million for 8 cars is actually really good, especially when one of them alone is 1 million credits, one is 500,000, one is 450,000. So I think that's actually pretty good value. Now, speaking of the Alfa Romeo again, as I said, it's no way near as quick as many of the other classics. The main advantage that it has is through corners. It feels great. The suspension updates of GT Sport, with the physics, the tyre deformation, that kind of stuff, it definitely benefits classic race cars much more so than modern ones, I think, because modern cars are getting better and better all the time, especially race cars, whereas it's with vintage and classic cars that you can see the difference. The way the cars bounce through the corners, that's what race cars did back then, that's how they looked. So it should, and this one feels very authentic. 10 million has always been too much, I think, for this car. I think it's more like a 5 million credit car. That would still be a whole lot, but for its performance with 160-ish horsepower, I mean, come on, 10 million for that. It is in Group X, of course, so we'll do a review on that one, but of course you can go back and forth on whether or not you think it's worth it. As far as one of the most interesting cars of the pack in terms of its visual appearance, the returning Plymouth X NR gear concept, surprisingly not brought back alongside the 1959 Stingray concept, which is a great rival for it. I wouldn't be surprised if that car came back as well though. This one is 1 million credits, just like it was on GT6, but if I recall correctly, I think you could win it on GT6 pretty early on in the game. It's a big car, it's a heavy car, it's got a surprisingly small engine, it's around a 2.8 litre, and, this is pretty cool, you can detune it to N100, but it's not that quick. In N100 it's not that quick. I think that the Honda S660 could probably beat it quite handily, maybe even the Daihatsu Copen, because it is very big and heavy compared to those. But it's an interesting collector's piece, and again, of course, stick around on the channel when I do the full breakdown. I'll probably do an N100 tune for it. If it's too slow, I might update it to something else, but it could be pretty cool having a car like that in N100. As far as the Viper, I was very pleasantly surprised with the Viper SRT10 because I was not looking forward to it at all, based on the track experience. I've never liked that Viper that much in games. I've always preferred the open top version. If you're gonna go for a hard top SRT10, why not just have the ACR? I personally still think that they're gonna bring that one back, but this one, as I said, did pleasantly surprise me. 100 grand means you can use it for Blue Moon if you want to. The handling is surprisingly controlled, but it shouldn't really be surprising because the Viper has always been a deceptively competitive car. It should be a hot rod for all intents and purposes, but it's not. It's a great race car. Of course, the Team Orica is iconic for a reason. As far as this one, I tuned up to 987 horsepower, which is the peak. That's brake horsepower. So N1000 capability is pretty good for a 100 grand car. as you can see in the video, getting it up around 230 or higher around Tokyo. Doubtless at Le Mans you could go even faster, and the handling is really good. It's very smooth, it's very controlled, it copes with its power very well, which is one of the biggest strengths of the Viper. And again, I will cover that of course in its own review. I'll do a tune for it, maybe a drag tune, maybe a top speed tune, we'll see. We're going to do tons of tunes for these cars anyway. As far as what we've missed, I think actually that only leaves us with one, and it was the car that I was the most intrigued about, and that is of course the Mazda RX 500. Was it going to be an N-Class car, or would it be in Group X? Well, I'm very happy to confirm it is indeed an N-Class car. You can detune it to N200. It's 500,000 credits, just like in Gran Turismo 6, and it is fantastic through the corners on Blue Moon Bay. Easily better than stuff like the GT40, which was already great, but not as quick on the straights as, for instance, the Alpine can be. The Alpine can get up around 170 in N200. I'm still working on my personal tune for that, but it can be done. This one feels way better than that through corners. It's very easy to drive. Top speed wise, it takes a little bit longer to get there though, so once I've worked out those kinks, we might be able to do a tune for that. Doubtless it will be capable in N300 though. That's, you know, this sealed the deal for that. It definitely will. N200 is the only question, so I would definitely recommend buying it. 500,000 is a lot for a road car, but it's one of the most OP classics in the game already. Fantastic handling. I've always loved the look of it. Great sound, great performance. It's one to go for, definitely from the pack. So if you get the chance to save up the 2.5 million for most of the cars, I would recommend probably the most buying both of the Porsches. They're both very good. The NSX is pretty good. The 300ZX has its own fans, you know, drifting, drag, circuit not so much. As far as the Alfa, it's a collector's piece, let's be honest. For the Mazda, definitely worth checking out. Probably my highest recommended of the pack alongside the Porsches. The M3 race car, really good in Group 3. I have high hopes for that one as far as performance goes. And the Plymouth XNR, you know, buy it if you want it. It's an interesting, quirky, oddball car, but don't put all of your hopes on it. It is 1 million credits, so it'll depend on what kind of driver you are, what kind of collector you are. You might want to just wait to win it. As far as Fuji, my brief thoughts are, it looks great. The time of day, as I said, you can change, which is cool. We still don't have the weather effects yet anyway, of course. The track itself, funnily enough, actually feels narrower to me than it used to. The road used to feel huge on the home straight, whereas now it doesn't. It feels much more narrow. Maybe that's the closer camera angle as well, perhaps. And the road looks grainier as well. It doesn't look as smooth as it used to, which of course comes with the graphic improvements of a PS4. Overall, I like the new track. We've got some track experience for the Red Bull Ring as well. I haven't completed those yet, but doubtless I will by the time this video is released. So again, bit of extra cash for you. And that's pretty much it overall for the pack. You can paint all of the vehicles. There's no Mercedes F1 style unpaintable car this time, so have fun with that of course. And that's it for this overall breakdown. As I said, make sure you stick around on this channel over the coming days and weeks. We're going to be breaking down every single car in the pack. I own them all already, of course, so that won't be difficult to do at all. But that is it for this breakdown overall. Of course, I'll see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.